Hi guys, and welcome back. Today we are talking about Deuteronomy 6:4, which says, "Listen, Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." Now, as Christians, we are considered monotheists, right? We believe in one God. And this verse often can be used to demonstrate that fact, or has been used to demonstrate that fact. Yet, this view has led to a little bit of a misunderstanding of how the biblical authors saw the spiritual world. Now, while the people who wrote the Bible would be quick to tell you that there is no one like our God, they would also tell you that that doesn't mean that there are no other gods. Now, before you get angry and start saying I'm blaspheming, let me clarify. You see, the misunderstanding seems to come from how we have viewed the word Elohim. The word Elohim is overwhelmingly translated as God with a capital G, and because of that, there's this view that Elohim is a name for Yahweh. But the problem is that it's actually incorrect to say that God is Yahweh's name, right? God is just an English word that we use to classify a specific type of being that has divine attributes. Now, while some may argue, yes, we do label other things as God, there's only one true God. Well, the issue is that Elohim isn't about a specific being with divine attributes like our English word. It actually is more about where a being resides, namely that it is a being from the spiritual realm. You see, in the Old Testament, Elohim is used to talk about Yahweh, obviously, but it's also used to talk about gods and goddesses of other nations, like in Judges 11:25 or 1 Kings 11:33. It's used to talk about demons in Deuteronomy 32:17. It's used to talk about the spirit of Samuel in 1 Samuel 28:13, and the angel of Yahweh in Genesis 35:7. Right? These are all spiritual beings. And when I realized that Elohim was not a name for Yahweh, but just a spiritual being, it made other passages where somebody said something like your God or the God of your father make more sense, because to them, they're talking about a specific Elohim, not necessarily Yahweh. And this brings me back to Deuteronomy and today's verse. You see, it's a famous verse I'm sure that you've heard before, and it's often called the Shema because it starts with the Hebrew word for to hear, Shema. So in Hebrew, you would say it like this: Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Akkad. One quick side note, you may be wondering about Eloheinu because it's not Elohim. That is because in Hebrew, they would attach endings to words to mark pronouns. So in this case, the new ending means our, which is why this is translated as our God. What I want to focus on, though, is that last word, akkad. Now, it is the Hebrew word for one, like the number, but it has another nuance to it, that of something unique. And we can see this in Zechariah 14:9, which says, "On that day, the Lord will become king over the whole earth, the Lord alone, akkad, and his name alone, akkad." So maybe we should say this verse in Deuteronomy like this: "Listen, Israel, Yahweh is our God, Yahweh alone." In other words, there are many Elohim, but only one Yahweh. This verse isn't a declaration of monotheism, it's more than that. This verse is declaring loyalty to the only Elohim who deserves it. It is Yahweh, and only Yahweh, that we should love with all our heart, all our soul, and all our mind. Saying there are other gods in the Bible shouldn't lower our view of the Bible or Yahweh's power. If anything, it should elevate it, because it was through a single Elohim that all things were created. And that means that there is nothing that can compare to him, because all things, including other gods, come from him. It shows just how amazing our Lord is, as he is the creator of both the seen and the unseen. So let's join Moses and the Israelites in declaring this truth. May we never turn to another, but boldly claim that Yahweh is our God, Yahweh alone. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you would like to hear this in a podcast, again, I'm putting each of these devotionals into a little podcast. Link is down below. Likewise, if you'd rather read it, I'm also putting up a blog form of all of these devotionals, and that link is down below as well. If this was a blessing to you, please share it with somebody, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next week.